Let's go! Building the ultimate Star Wars lightsaber. I am in the suburb 30 miles outside of Sacramento, California, and Yoda's teaching me how to fight with a lightsaber. In this particular case, Yoda is the online nickname for Michael Murphy, a 43-year-old artist that makes his living building high-end custom lightsabers, including the ones we're using, but that doesn't make the lesson any less intense. I step forward, my blue blade cutting through the air with an unmistakable thrumm. My blow is easily parried, our sabers clashing hot white. He pivots, blade whirling behind his back as he executes a 360-degree spin that I'm pretty sure I've seen Ewan McGregor pull off. He swings straight for my head, and as I bring my saber up to block I can't help but think two things. This is probably what Daisy Ridley felt like, and I have to get me one of these. I guess somewhere deep down I always wanted to be a toy maker, Murphy tells me across the island in his kitchen. Except for the rack of lightsabers by the couch and the detailed blueprints and sample material sitting on the counter, it feels like any suburban home in America. Even though I originally wanted to build cars, those are just big toys. More dangerous. More money. His eyes shift mischievously, and he laughs. This is something that's much more unique. Unique doesn't even begin to cover it. For the past 10 years, Murphy's made his living building lead-powered lightsabers, and the internal chassis that make them tick. The forums on his website, FX Sabers, are part of a thriving custom lightsaber scene, where designers, engineers, sabersmiths, and DIY tinkerers all collaborate in the name of building the ultimate Star Wars movie prop. For Murphy it started in 2005, when he was hit with back-to-back medical injuries and found himself unable to work, couch-ridden for more than a year. One of the things I could do was get online, he tells me. At the time, the internet was still obsessed with the Star Wars prequel trilogy, and a company called Master Replicas had set a new standard for collectible sabers with primitive light-up blades and sound. My son had found some pictures of the Master Replica things online, in this little dinky discussion forum where people were talking about stuff. That dinky discussion forum was FX Sabers, and as Murphy and son bonded over lightsabers, he joined a community that was initially focused on helping owners repair and upgrade the licensed collectibles. He quickly took on a more active role, eventually taking over the site entirely. That's when he started going by Master Yoda, just as the community's ambitions were beginning to grow. At the time, hardcore fans had already been taking matters into their own hands for years. Connecting through sites like the Replica Prop Forum, people would break down precisely how movie props were built so they could recreate screen-accurate items for everything from Star Trek to Raiders of the Lost Ark. The same thing was happening with lightsabers, with some pioneering individuals going so far as to sell their own inspired by designs or build replicas that were even more accurate than the licensed products. Murphy's personal obsession, however, was the original Luke Skywalker saber, referred to in the community as the Reflex. It's important to remember that when George Lucas made Star Wars back in the 70s, it was a fairly low-budget film, and everything from the X-Wings to the blasters were made from cannibalized model kits and other found parts. One of the items that the production had the hardest time nailing down were the lightsabers, until set decorator Roger Christian came across a box of camera flashes from the 1930s and 40s. The company that made them, Graflex. The flash's odd combination of metal swoops, curves, and flips instantly called to mind the retro-future aesthetic the film was going for. Christian stuck the strip of bubbles pilfered from an old Texas Instruments calculator into the flash's clamp, added a D-ring at the bottom, and topped it off with some grips. That was the original lightsaber. Star Wars fans have become notorious in the camera collecting world by the early 2000s. Star Wars disciples were tracking down old Graflex flashes to such a degree that they'd become notorious in the camera collecting community, but those mostly ended up as bladeless hilts that would just sit on a shelf and look pretty. Murphy, however, was interested in taking the electronics from the latest toys and putting them inside the vintage flash for a replica that could be used for dueling or cosplay. Creating a screen-accurate vintage lightsaber complete with light up blade and interactive effects demanded an internal system custom designed for the 70-year-old antiques. It was something that was born out of my previous radio-controlled car experience, where you need to have a chassis that can house your electronics, he says. One night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was coming up with what I wanted to put in the hilt, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa was on the History Channel. And I said, well, that's what I need to do. I need to take all of my flattened RC car chassis ideas and turn them into a cylindrical system. The resulting combination of aluminum poles and plastic discs provided the rigid structure that protected and cushioned the electronics in the sabers. But most importantly for Murphy's own contributions to the hobby, it would provide room for what is known as a crystal chamber. I'm not going to lie, I've followed Star Wars since I was a kid, and when I first heard about crystal chambers they seemed a step too far even for me. According to official lore, lightsabers are powered by force-infused crystals, and while they never appear in the movies there is a reference book known as the Star Wars Visual Dictionary that features a lightsaber cross-section. That design, complete with crystal chamber, is truly compelling, and feels ripped right from the fabric of the films. Using it as a general inspiration, Murphy created the vintage Graflex Luke lightsaber with removable blade and sound, that also featured the glowing crystal chamber. It was crude, assembled with a modified light-up tire valve stem, but it was a turning point in the community. It sold on eBay for $3,900, a huge bump over the roughly $800 worth of parts it was made from. It was the functional look of having something that tied the mystical aspect into the technological aspect. Gallant Johnson, one half of the husband and wife team behind lightsaber manufacturer Vader's Vault, tells me over the phone. People want to see that. They want to pull back the veil and see the mystical aspects to the technology. And when you see his early crystal chambers, they gave people that spark. Michael Murphy Crystal Chamber Photo. Murphy's original crystal was a light-up tire valve. Photo courtesy of Michael Murphy. Chambers have gone on to become one of the ways that artists and designers in the hobby distinguish themselves creatively, and it's often the difference between high-end custom sabers, costing thousands of dollars, and cheaper stunt sabers that are meant to be bashed around. Today you can find anything from a 3D printed chamber to intricate, hand-machined options, available in practically every style of lightsaber you can imagine. But over the years Murphy's Graflex chamber has become his hallmark, evolving from that relatively primitive first design into its sophisticated modern incarnation that uses quartz crystals that have been drilled underwater so they can be lit up with a series of fiber optics. The work is stunning, in total aesthetic harmony with both the reference illustrations and the original trilogy itself. Mike's the progenitor of this whole thing, Johnson says. Since then, a lot of people have done a lot more elaborate and detail-oriented crystal chambers, but his is still the classic. If you want to buy what it looks like in the Visual Dictionary, Mike Murphy's Yoda Graflex is the way to go. Crystal chamber close-up. Murphy's current design utilizes a pair of drilled quartz crystals lit with a fiber optic system. But meeting the needs of hardcore fans requires more than just design and lights. The lightsaber has to actually feel like it's a working device pulled from that world, reacting to swings, movement, and clashes with oral and visual feedback that's so familiar it's burned into our collective cultural consciousness. At the same time Murphy's designs were evolving, an engineer in France named Emmanuel Plevy was iterating on a motion-sensing sound and lighting system to solve that exact problem, setting the new standard for the custom lightsaber world. The lightsaber spun on stage is very close to musical expression. Plevy, who goes by the pseudonym of Earth Lecture online handles are still very much a thing in the community, works at the Institute for Research and Coordination in Acoustics/Music in Paris. Early in his career he became focused on creating low-latency, gesture-based musical interfaces for lip performances, and when he got interested in making replica lightsabers, his background was the perfect fit. The lightsaber spun on stage is very close to musical expression, and you would expect it to react in real time just as if you were playing an instrument, he tells me over Skype. There's motion, there's interaction, there's latency. Obviously sound is a very big part of the lightsaber. The soundboard is the heart of a modern custom lightsaber, powering the LEDs that illuminate the polycarbonate blade, tracking motion so it zooms or clashes appropriately, and flashing the blade brighter when it hits another saber in combat. What first started as Flippy making a small batch of boards for the community has evolved into a mini business, with a full lineup of Plector Labs boards available ranging from $50 to $160, even while he still builds the bulk of them in his basement. He recently added a production partner for U.S. distribution. Using a lightsaber with one of his products is responsive and realistic, particularly compared to what's available from Hasbro today. The lightsaber sound can change depending on the type of swing or angle of attack. The LED-powered blades can turn any color of the rainbow, and systems equipped with a micro slot let users change sounds and tune everything from the sensitivity of the gyroscopic sensors to the flicker of the blade. Crystal Focus Board. The high-end Crystal Focus lightsaber soundboard, created by Emanuel Flippy of Plector Labs. With so many options and manufacturers, the learning curve is steep, and it's up to the forum communities to protect those new to the hobby. Companies like Plector Labs, Vader's Vault, and the UK-based JQ Sabers have earned sanctioned homes in the FX Sabers forums, the model that's spread to other online saber communities like Imperial Royal Arms. There, the recent run based on Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi lightsaber took community collaboration even further with a cross-continental team-up that saw Michigan-based manufacturer Solos Cold joining forces with a French chassis designer and a variety of other manufacturers and installers throughout the U.S.